welcome to the 2023 SlamBall season preview for the Gryphons. I am Sam Roberts. Thank you for joining me here today on the Bounce Off, or Bounce Off. Still haven't quite worked out if it's the or just Bounce Off. This is our second team preview. If you've not seen our one for the Buzzsaw, aka the Buzz, that came out on Friday, make sure you check that one out. That's going to give you a look at the team coached by head coach Hernando Planels and everything that goes on with the team that took the second overall pick, I believe. Today's team is the Gryphons. Gold and black, excellent colour combination. We're going to talk about all the players that they drafted in draft order. They had the 8th pick in the draft, and it was snake style, so they got the 8th pick and then the 9th pick. So we'll have a look at what they managed to come out with. We're then going to talk a little bit about the coaches. I'm going to predict their starting 4 and their 5th man coming off the bench. And then we'll go over some weaknesses and strengths for the team overall. Don't want to ramble too much. Want to get straight into it because the last one felt like it went a bit long. And I want to make these a little bit more succinct, a little bit more bite-sized for you guys that are listening in or watching on YouTube. That's right, it is on YouTube. If you want to see what my face looks like, if you're just a listener, then go there. If you want to listen on the go and you don't have YouTube Premium, you can get it on Apple, you can get it on Spotify, you can get it on Amazon Music, and you can get it on Google Play. Just search Bounce Off a SlamBall podcast, or just Bounce Off, or in all honesty, SlamBall maybe, and then sort by podcast, because there's not that many. There's only 2 of us, and I've got episodes. Excited to see what the guys at Slamcast bring us. But I've already started rambling, and I said I wasn't going to do that. So we're going to get into this episode. We're going to talk about the Gryphons. We're going to talk about their first round pick, 8th overall pick, Justin Holmes, 26-year-old from Roseville, California. He's a big boy, and he plays handler, which is exciting. I like when we have a ball-carrying position that's filled with a big guy. He's 6'3" and 235 pounds. I'm expecting big tackles defensively and a lot of aggression going to the rim offensively from this guy. He is a former wide receiver in college, and I couldn't find if he'd played externally, like after college, having been a wide receiver. He was supposed to play for the Iowa Barnstormers of the Indoor Football League in 2020, but that was cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But we will talk about the Barnstormers in a second anyway. Fundamentally, I couldn't find much about this guy, but in his 4 years at San Jose State University, as a wide receiver, he had 99 catches for a total of 1,192 yards and 5 touchdowns over his career. Those seem like decent numbers. I'm a basketball fan, I'm a little bit of an ice hockey fan, I'm a little bit of a baseball fan. Football, US football, American football is a sport that's not so much in my worldview. I can talk about it a little bit, but I can't tell you what a really good statistic is versus an okay statistic. So 99 catches for 1,192 yards, that seems pretty good to me. If we round that up to 100 catches, then you're doing, is that 11? Yeah, 11 yards per catch, which by what I've looked at is fine, is pretty good. 8th overall pick, Justin Holmes, a very big handler. And I'm excited to see what he does. As a handler, you're expecting him to distribute the ball more and occasionally go up for dunks on the fast break or just when it's convenient. And I think as a wide receiver, ideally his hands are going to be good on the catch, which is going to be really fortunate for the Gryphons in a half-court setting if play sort of gets disrupted and they need to rely on their gunners to distribute a little bit more. Justin Holmes is capable of just being a scorer. And I think this team generally has got some good size about it. But we will get into that. So fundamentally, I couldn't find a huge amount about this guy. But part of the beauty of SlamBall is that there's not much that we can tell until they get on the court. Because a lot comes through in the tryouts and in practice that we just don't see. We won't see it until they make it onto the SlamBall court on the 21st of July. There's a lot that we can't read into as an audience, as fans, because we don't have the opportunity to see what they're like in this very unique setting. So we just have to wait for what if he was drafted 8th overall out of 58 guys, then you just kind of have to expect that he's decent. And if you're wondering why my face is going really white all of a sudden, for those watching, or if you can hear typing in the background as my face goes incredibly white. I'm going to Justin Holmes' Instagram because I swore, and I was right. I saw clips of him practicing for SlamBall, and he looks, and I forgot to note it down. No, he's doing some work with world famous basketball, like street ball player Bone Collector is part of the training staff, it would seem, for SlamBall. So that's all he's really posted about doing it. And then outside of that, he's got a lot of like game breakdowns for other people's time in the world of football. No, sorry, I'm now getting mesmerized by what I thought were clips of him playing in the Indoor Football League, and I was like, no, that's from 2019. That's when he was in college. But this is, so I thought I'd done my research for this. Clearly, I haven't because I didn't see this video before. So I'm gonna have a very quick look at this is live reaction. Catching in the air and being unafraid of contact as a wide receiver. These are both really important skills to have at that position. And in SlamBall, even more so if you're the one making scores. Again, as the handler, you want him to be distributing more than you want him to be scoring. But looking at this highlight tape from 2019, he's got leaping ability over defenders. He's not afraid of multiple defenders coming at him. And he's got good hands in the air to be able to make plays when a ball's coming from behind him. Some of the most spectacular highlights you can see in SlamBall is someone going up for a dunk, the pass going behind them, and they still manage to catch it and put it in over their own head. So hopefully we'll see some of that from Justin Holmes. Anyway, that's Justin Holmes. That was their first round pick. Their second round pick and the 9th pick overall. I love this guy. That's the start of this sentence. I love this guy. Connor Hollenbeck, 27, from Ontario, New York. He's 6'6", 225 pounds, and is the starting. I'm already giving you a little tip. I say I love this guy, so you probably expect he's going to be starting. The starting stopper for the Gryphons, right? The reason I love him is because he has already taken to SlamBall in such an authentic way. You are having players who are like, this is my dream, and this is awesome, this is really cool. And I don't doubt them, but I like the way that Connor Hollenbeck is just sort of like, before it was announced he was part of SlamBall, he was posting highlights of him dunking both in high school and now in like training, because he is a football player by like profession. And he's sort of like, was not teasing, because who would have known, but his Instagram all of a sudden shifted to like, let's talk about basketball highlights. And then since he's been announced as a part of the Gryphons, he's been posting a load about it, including as soon as Media Day happened for them, as soon as they got all their team photos, posting like a brand new profile pic on Twitter. So excited for Connor Hollenbeck to be excited, and glad that he's excited about playing SlamBall. But I don't just love him because he's got enthusiasm and chutzpah. I love him because his stats are pretty good. So he played as both a wide receiver and a punter for Edinburgh University, which is almost spelt like Edinburgh in Scotland, but it's not. Which is why I might be pronouncing it where it's Edinburgh University. In 10 games, he had 11 catches for 117 yards, which is a 10.6 yard average, which is just slightly smaller than Justin Holmes based on my very quick maths earlier. He also had a touchdown, and he punted 28 times for the team, leading to 33 yards on average. So he's got strong legs. I like that. 10.6 yards per catch is a decent outing. And he showed an ability within his time at college to shrug off defenders, because a lot of his catches came, because he's slightly bigger, the defense was able to kind of stick with him a little bit. But if they got a hold of him, he just kind of shrugged them off because he's a big dude, which I quite like. As a wide receiver, as a guy who's expected to catch a lot of passes in the air, which he was doing, including ones that bobbled off of a defensive tip, you need to hope that his timing is good, and timing is currently my biggest concern for anyone at the stopper position. It's looking more and more likely that to play stopper effectively underneath the basket, you need to be good at the timing of when to jump to get in the way of offensive players coming at the basket, and he seems to have that down exceptionally. You can even tell that in the highlights that he's uploaded onto Twitter of himself on the SlamBall court. These aren't, by the looks of things at least, these aren't drills that he's doing this in. He's making excellent stops in open play during scrimmage, which is exciting to see. He was also regularly asked to be a defensive presence physically for his quarterbacks. So if he was not the wide receiver receiving the catch, there's a lot of blocking going on his part, and no issues there. No one really got past him. He was able to reposition and maneuver the defensive or the offensive. Yeah, it was defensive player. Football confuses me sometimes. Reposition the defensive player away from his own quarterback, and he's totally comfortable being physical and having his hands on guys and just getting in the way. And that excites me a lot. I've not seen any leaping catches, so I don't know about his timing in terms of catching the ball in the air on the trampoline, but ideally I think stoppers should be hanging back more. So we'll hope for that. He did play basketball in high school, and I don't know why I've not noted down his high school stats, but his numbers for, I believe it's this guy, I believe it's Connor Hollenbeck, who during his time in high school averaged 20 and 10, 20 points, 10 rebounds. So his rebounding numbers gives you hope that he'll be able to time it right in the air of when to catch a ball. But again, also rebounding numbers give me sort of an indication about their timing of when to go up for a stop, because you need to be able to assess when other players are going to be making their move, etc. So excited about those elements. More recently, coming out of college, he then played on the Iowa Barnstormers, who we mentioned when we were talking about Justin Holmes. He played for the Iowa Barnstormers in the IFL. The two of them didn't play together because Holmes was supposed to be on the team in 2020 and then the league shut down because of COVID. But Connor Hollenbeck was on them in 2019, where he had a total of 627 yards, 7 touchdowns. What? Oh, sorry. I'm reading my own notes terribly. So he had 627 yards in 2019, which was 8th in the whole league. He was 7th in all touchdowns with 14, and he was 4th in the league for interceptions in 13 games played. Interceptions excites me as well from the stopper position, because that not only means that if you're getting a lot of interceptions, your timing on when to come in to disrupt the opposition play is high. So that's a good sign for a stopper. Again, I am talking about timing a lot, but it's because I'm getting more and more concerned the closer I get to the season. It's becoming a focal point of my analysis, is what's the timing going to be like for these guys. And whether it's catches, whether it's rebounds, or whether it's interceptions on the football field, all the stats are pointing that Hollenbeck is potentially going to be a really good stopper, an all-star stopper. He's my front runner from this team to be a potential all-star. So I like that. I like that a lot. He was a multiple varsity athlete in high school. So not only was it 20 and 10 in basketball, which I was correct, that was during his senior year. He also was all-county for the high jump. So he's got some springy legs in him as well. On top of being big, one of the bigger players, on top of having good timing, he's got some athletic legs in him. And I don't know how that works. I don't know how the springs in your legs are then affected by the springs of a trampoline. I don't know if it matters a huge amount, but we will see with Connor Hollenbeck and with many other athletes that we'll get to later on. I don't like talking about high school stats, especially for someone who last was in high school 13 years ago. You know, little injuries happen here and there, or people just lose certain aspects of their game because they're focusing on others. But combining everything we're seeing here, combining his high school basketball stats, combining his high jump, combining his college stats for football, combining those 58 interceptions in 2019, never mind a further 16 receptions for 224 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2021, which was averaging 14 yards per catch, or carry, however you want to call it. All of this interests me for Connor Hollenbeck. Size, timing, and willingness to go at the rim. I'm excited. He'll get a lot of minutes at the stopper, especially on the Gryphons. He's going to get a lot of minutes because he is their only official stopper on this team, which is a big concern, which we'll get to later on. I've just been watching a bunch of clips from the 2016 SlamBall season, and the Slashers really struggled because 2 of their players went out with injuries, and then they immediately had no subs. 4-man team, having to play all of every game, so any little stave finger or anything that you may want to just jump out and let heal up before you get back to playing, they were unable to do, and the players eventually just got incredibly gassed because they were having to run up and down. Stopper is an incredibly physical position. You're not having any momentum. People are coming directly at you left, right, and centre. And I feel like having only one on your roster of a potential 7 players is maybe not a great idea. He could get tired fast, and that could be his downfall. But at minimum, he's going to get so many minutes that his stats might just be juiced. And at the end of the season, it's undeniable that he's an all-star stopper. We'll see. But my main concern for him is not anything to do with himself. It's to do with the drafting that the Gryphons have done and whether or not he's going to have the gas tank to be able to go for the full 20-minute game. Sounds ridiculous when you say that out loud, but it's really physically demanding on your legs with the jumping in and out of the trampolines, but then also on the body as a stopper to constantly have to go up and take full body contact and just hope that your arms can get in the way. I have hope for Connor Hollenbeck. I have hope that he will be an all-star. He's my front runner for the Gryphons roster to be an all-star in this 2023 season, but I don't like his chances in terms of rest. That's Connor Hollenbeck, 9th pick overall, first of the second round, 6'6", 225 stopper from Ontario, New York, 27 years old. I like him. Their third round pick, which makes him my maths is so terrible, but 24th pick overall. Kyshawn Jones, 28, Danville, Virginia, 6'2", 200 pounds, and a gunner. So we've had a handler, we've had a stopper, we've now got a gunner. A lot of his highlights come from the semi-pro football ranks. Like, I couldn't find a huge amount about him in terms of like any former like college availability at football or any like official stats you could find online. A lot of what I'm getting is from his like Facebook page, and the stats that you can find there, or more accurately the highlights you can find there, are what I'm running off of. So based on the highlights that you can find on his social media presence, he's got an ability to shrug off defenders when running with the football. So that's contact coming at him, he can shake a guy loose. Important in the open floor in SlamBall. Excited for that. It shows a good level of physicality. Unlike Connor Hollenbeck, because this is 3 straight receiving players we're now talking about. The Gryphons drafted 3 football players in the first 3 rounds, and all of them are expected to make catches. They're all wide receivers, I believe. If I'm quoting wrong, my bad, but by looking at what you're all listed as, that seems to be the case. But Kyshawn Jones, unlike Connor Hollenbeck, more like Justin Holmes, has shown an ability to make catches in the air with good timing. He usually gets an advantage on that with speed and a quick first step off his defender. So in SlamBall, you're not allowed to tackle the offensive player until they've dribbled the ball. So all you can do is try and stay in front of them, hands up, maybe giving them a little bit of pressure. If Kyshawn Jones has got a quick first step and he's only receiving the ball in the half court, inside the offensive half where he's aiming straight for the basket, jab step straight into the trampolines and he should be up and above the stopper before they have an opportunity to react. I think if you give him enough distance, enough of a runway to get the run up, Kyshawn Jones is interesting in the half court setting as a gunner, but that also means that he's going to be interesting in a full court setting on a fast break if he's just being chucked the ball and asked to go get it and make a play. He's uploaded some dunking clips because as much as he is a football player by semi-profession, I suppose, he also has had experience in the basketball court, including a 2018 video from Team Flight Bros, which, if you don't know, they upload a bunch of incredible dunking highlights and footage onto YouTube, where they refer to him as the best dunker in the world you've never heard of. And it is a series of impressive clips. He gets a lot of height. He's able to do a lot in the air. So this means he could be quite interesting to see freestyle on the offensive end when he's going up for moves. How is he going to maneuver around the basket? How is he going to be able to avoid stoppers that are coming in to get him? I like that. Interestingly, they list him as 5'10", so he's had a growth spurt of 4 inches in 5 years, which, an inch a year, I'll take it. Going back to high school stats, again, I'm not always sure how I feel about that, but with Kyshawn Jones, a lot of the things I can find are historic. So high school stats, or not even stats, but he was a varsity letterman athlete for basketball, football, and track while he was in high school, so a 3-sport athlete. Again, seeing clips from some SlamBall coaches, Mr. Taylor being one of them, for the who did he coach? But Coach Taylor. This is where I immediately go and check, is he the coach of this team? Because then that would help me. No, he's not. It's July and Janice, so we'll talk about JJ later. But Sean Taylor, not Sean Taylor, maybe it is Sean Taylor. Maybe my brain's just giving me the answer. Coach Taylor has said in interviews that the ideal for a SlamBall player is a multi-sport athlete, someone who excelled in football and basketball. So Kyshawn Jones fits that bill with football, basketball, and some track and field and athletics experience. So this might just indicate that he's an uber athletic dude, which at a gunner position is really useful. Just throw the ball up there and let him make a play. The basketball highlights on his Instagram show an ability to hang in the air and finish with spin off the backboard from awkward angles. So this isn't his dunking, right? We've talked about his dunking, we've talked about impressive power. If you're just looking at the clips he's uploaded to Instagram, so that's rec league runs, that's nothing of like a professional capacity, it's guys getting together and wanting to play a game. A lot of this will be better than anything I've ever faced playing in Scotland. This is not me disparaging, I'm just saying it's not necessarily like they're playing for money and everyone's like incredibly locked in. Regardless of that, it doesn't change the fact that the clips you're seeing are him going up for a move, him trying to make a play on the basket, a defender comes in at him, and he's forced to maneuver in air to try and get around them. Does that not sound familiar for what he'll have to do against stoppers in SlamBall when they're coming at him and he's got to wiggle his body around in the air? And he's able to use his body position at an awkward angle and use his hands to spin the ball off the backboard and into the hoop. Impressive angles, ridiculous angles. They'd be called circus shots. It's a really impressive skill. It's useful for evading stoppers in SlamBall when you'd much rather get 2 points than get blocked by them. So if he struggles in the air, if he's got a stopper coming at him, he might be able to maneuver around them and get the ball in with some spin alternatively. And that's exciting. But a lot of those clips, it also wasn't necessarily that the defender was putting him under a lot of pressure so much as he decided mid-air he was going to do that. Now, it doesn't matter because, again, he's just out there having fun. But if he's more likely to try and do something fancy than try and score, it hurts the Gryphons' opportunities to win games, but it will make him a highlight reel master, and that's going to be fun to watch. That's Kyshawn Jones, the third-round pick for the Gryphons and a gunner, 6'2", 200 pounds. Their fourth pick is a second handler, which I find interesting because we've talked about it in previous videos, but traditionally in SlamBall, with the three positions, stopper's your main defensive threat. You only ever have one of them on the court unless injuries force you otherwise. Handler is your main ball distributor. You typically would have one on the court, but historically some teams have used two. But ideally you'd have one stopper defensively, one handler for distribution and organisation of the offence, and two gunners who are your primary scorers who are always going at the basket, show incredible athleticism and willingness to go straight to the basket for dunks. They've drafted handler, stopper, gunner, handler. So you might think that they're going to do a two-handler starting four. We will get into that in a second when we get to their fifth round pick, but I think they are going to go with a traditional lineup of 1-1-2, stopper, handler, two gunners, rather than 1-2-1 of stopper, two handlers, and a gunner. We'll get into that. But that's not because I dislike the player that they have as their fourth round pick. It's not that I dislike Jordan Grant, 28 from Norwich, Connecticut, because he's still 6'3", he's still 185 pounds as a handler. That is big. Jelani Janice, who is the head coach of this team, when he was playing SlamBall, he was called like an athletic beast that it was unfair to have at the handler position, and he weighed like less than Jordan Grant, I believe. This is why I then have to check the notes that I've got scrawled everywhere. But 6'3" is big for a handler in historic SlamBall. I don't really know about these days. It could be that that's small, but it's still a big height generally. I don't dislike him, and we'll get into what he's good at. I just don't think that he's going to be starting. I think he's going to be their fifth man coming off the bench. So in high school, he achieved third place in the All-State High Jump while making it to the state semi-finals of basketball for Ledyard High School. If I pronounce it wrong, I definitely have, because that's Ledyard. If I pronounce things wrong, I'm Scottish, not American. I'm sorry. I don't know all these words. We'll learn together. If you're a SlamBall player and I pronounce something wrong about you and you hear about it, just talk to me on social media at Quantum Roberts, and we can talk about it. Quantum, Quantum Roberts, Robert with an S at the end. There's a little plug. He won the New England Championship in 2017 with the Community College of Rhode Island. And he is a basketball player, despite also being third place in the All-State high jump. So again, spray your legs. This is what I like. I'm enjoying seeing the number of players in this season who have a history of being track and field athletes in the jumping categories. Because I don't know, how does it matter when there's a trampoline? It's giving you springs. You don't need springs for legs. They've given you the springs. So I'm excited to see what he can do with that. But I'm more excited by this really weird stat I found about Jordan Grant that I'm going to love talking about. So he went to Western Connecticut State after his time at Rhode Island Community College, or the Community College of Rhode Island. He averaged 3.6 points per game in 10 minutes per game, right? In the 2017-18 season, he averaged he made 3 threes that season, right? He was primarily a 2-point shooter. He made 3 threes out of 8 attempts in 2017-2018, okay? After that, he went on to play for the Massachusetts Monarchs of the Basketball League, the TBL, in 2022. His points went up significantly for the Monarchs because he was no longer in the college system. He was now in a professional league. He was getting more opportunities where he was going 8 points per game. He had 16 points across 2 games for the Monarchs. He went 4 for 12 from the 2-point land. And remember what I said about the really interesting stat, 3 for 8 from 3. Interesting. In the previous year, before the Monarchs became the Massachusetts Monarchs, in 2021, he also played for them when they were the South Shore Monarchs. Then he was averaging 7.9 points per game in far more many games. 19 of 35 from the field and 3 of 8 from 3. This man, in every season that you can find statistics for, right? In every season where you can find, whether it be a lot of games, whether it be a few games, whether it be some games, Jordan Grant, 6'3", 185-pound handler for the Gryphons, makes 3 threes out of 8 attempts. Every season that I've been able to find stats for, 3 threes out of 8 attempts. And I am really excited this season, in the 2023 SlamBall season, to see if at the handler position, a position who does traditionally shoot from outside in SlamBall in recent years, I predict that Jordan Grant is going to take 8 3-point shots and he's going to make 3 of them. And I'm more excited to follow that than anything else in the whole season. And I'm not meaning dunks, because as we all know, in SlamBall, a dunk is worth 3 points. Any shot from outside the arc is worth 3 points. Anything from inside the arc, other than a dunk, is worth 2. I don't mean dunks. That would be cheating, SlamBall fans. I'm exclusively talking about shots from beyond the arc. So everyone track this with me. It's incredibly stupid, but track Jordan Grant, handler for the Gryphons. I'm thinking he's going to come off the bench. How many threes does he make this year? How many threes does he attempt? Does he attempt 8? Does he make 3? If he does anything other than that, I'm going to be disappointed, because at this point I think he's magic. Now, he's not just a 3 of 8 3-point shooter, which is 30-something%. In that 2021 season with the South Shore Monarchs, he also averaged 3.1 rebounds per game, which is fine. It's decent. Unless you're like a incredible beast of a rebounder, 3.1 rebounds per game at 6'3" in a guard role is pretty good. So that excites me again in terms of... Again, he was coming off the bench as well. But rebounds for timing really excite me on a defensive end, because it's not just the stoppers that have to get in the air and try and stop offensive players. The rest of the defense has to try and do it sometimes as well. And rebounds are a good indicator for me, not just like steals or interceptions in football, but rebounds are a timing thing. So I like seeing that. According to his agency, Sports Management Worldwide, this is a quote about what he does as a basketball player. So I've given you some of the stats, the 3 for 8 from 3, the rebounding numbers, everything else. I've given you all the stats for Jordan Grant. Again, there's nothing here that's like wowing me. It's pretty good. I just think that with the way this team's structured and with the next player I'm going to talk about, I think that you put Jordan Grant as your 5th man, which isn't a slight. We'll get to a gunner that comes up in the next round. I'll talk about it in a second. But he's going to be a really good guy coming off the bench. He might be a front runner for 5th man of the year in the league, thinking about it. But again, we'll have to wait and see because of how SlamBall works. According to Sports Management Worldwide, he defends the best players on the court, positions 1 through 3. He is a great leader and was captain of his collegiate team for 2 years while helping them to 2 conference championships. That's when he was in Rhode Island Community College. He's an outstanding athlete with tremendous jumping ability. Springs on springs. Allowing him to grab rebounds and finish at a high level around the rim. So again, that's why he was taking 2s, not 3s, but he's also getting rebounds. So good defensively. And again, I think that's important if you're going to be a two-way player coming off the bench. Good defensively, can shoot 3s at a 3 of 8 clip, and can get rebounds. So excited to see what Jordan Grant could do, expecting him to come off the bench. Their 5th round pick, and the person who I think is going to replace him in the starting 5, is Adam. And this is the first guy with a nickname that we're talking about this season. I've been noting down a lot of nicknames from the history of SlamBall. But Adam Flash Stanford. He's 28, he's from Fontana, California, and he has played professional basketball in like 8 countries. He's 6'4", 200 pounds, and he is a gunner. I think he's going to be in the starting 4 alongside Justin Holmes, alongside Connor Hollenbeck, alongside, Kai-Shawn Jones. I think this is the rounding out of your starting 4 because he's just got really good basketball stats as you go through his time as a pro player. It fluctuates a little bit from the 3-point range, right? We will talk about that. But he has progressed really nicely from a college player into a professional player in basketball. So when he was at Kentucky Wesleyan, he was getting 7 points per game, mostly 2-pointers, and 4 rebounds per game in 19.9 minutes. Again, rebound numbers are decent in terms of timing. Scoring, you'd like a little bit more than 7 points per game. But he then moved to Campbellsville, where he averaged 7.3 points per game and increased his rebounds to 5.2 per game while playing on less minutes. So he's increased both stats while playing less minutes at 18.4 minutes per game. So he's improving and he is becoming more reliable and he is becoming more consistent as he goes through his collegiate career. He shot over 50% from the field and almost entirely 2-pointers, not doing a lot of 3-point shots, right? And this is when he was in college, right? He then goes to play professionally and he went to a couple of different places. He went to Hong Kong, he went to Thailand, he went to Canada, and we'll talk about some of these different ones. We'll talk about Thailand first. So in 2019, he played for the Bangkok City Tigers. He played 9 games. Listen to how these stats jump. Again, this is a guard in basketball, so this is a smaller player on the court. He all of a sudden, from not shooting 3s very regularly to being a 2-point shooter, he jumps to 10 of 24 from 3, which was 41% in the season, 23.2 points per game, 5.8 assists, which is an incredible distribution number compared to other people in the SlamBall league that I've looked at thus far, and from 5.2 rebounds per game his senior college year, he jumps up to 13.1 rebounds per game and tacks on 2.8 steals. Now, the thing with this is he goes from 18.4 minutes per game in college, his senior year, to about 30 minutes per game when he joins the pros. So he's staying at a consistent level, but he is getting way more minutes. So he's still able to pull off these numbers. Now, it drops back down a little bit the next time he's in Thailand. He comes back in 2022 and plays for High Tech. He gets 13.8 points per game. His rebounds go a little bit lower, 8.1. He gets 3.2 assists per game, and he gets 1.9 steals per game across 16 games, right? But his minutes have also dropped back down. He gets 23.4 minutes per game. So he's still giving you pretty decent output in the minutes that he's given. These high assists per game numbers, compared to other people in these leagues that I've looked at, are really encouraging as a gunner. You'd think that would make him a good handler, and he could probably play reserve handler if they wanted to go incredibly big. But as a gunner, it means that he can draw the defense to him in the trampolines, whether that be right under the basket or while making plays on the island or in the side tramps. He can draw the defense to him, he can draw the attention of the defending stopper, and he can make a pass either outside of the tramps to a trailing gunner, or if Connor Hollenbeck can shoot 3s, or to the handler who can make a play from outside. This is really encouraging for spreading the floor. The thing is, with that second season in Thailand, he was really good for his first 5 games, and then after that he started to depreciate. And that might concern you, because you think, okay, so the longer the season goes on, he's not going to be very good. And it was a 16-game season that they played for High Tech, so is that going to be... SlamBall is only... Your regular season is 10 games. So if you get off to a really good start with this guy scoring a bunch of points, say he's scoring like 24 points per game through the first 5 games, right? Say that's what he's doing in the SlamBall season. Probably going to win most of those games. If you go 5 for 5 in the first 5 games of the season, you can probably squeak out a couple of extra wins if he does tail off, right? But that's not even the most recent time he was playing professionally. Let's go to the last time he was playing pro, which is in Canada. It was a truncated season in the Eastern Canadian Basketball League because the league eventually decided that they wanted to close down and restructure. But playing for the Charlottetown Power, the last league he played for professionally, he was getting 26.3 points per game. His assist numbers went to higher than ever before. I've noted something down slightly wrong. So I can't tell now if it's his assists or his rebounds, but both of these stats are good. So, because I've noted them both as assists per game. So either assists or rebounds. He got 10.3 of one and 4.2 of the other. I've noted them both as assists per game. Apologies, Flash Stanford. I'm excited to see you play, but clearly I'm not that excited to note down your stats properly. If it's 10.3 assists per game, even better for distribution. If it's 10.3 rebounds per game, even better for his defensive prowess in SlamBall and understanding timing. If it's 4.2 of the other one, equally fine. It means that he was more concerned about distributing the ball while also scoring, which means he's going to be incredible in the offensive end, versus if it's and getting 4.2 rebounds is decent for a guard, you know. But he also tacked on 1 steal a game and 1.2 blocks per game, so his defensive timing is really good as well. So not only did this guy score a lot, his 3-point shooting improved, so he's going to be able to hit from outside a lot more, but he's also going to run and gun for the rim. Not only is that like he's really good offensively, but defensively he's going to be a juggernaut. He dunks sometimes, but it's not a regular part of his game. But again, that's without a trampoline to jump off of. He's primarily like a fancy finisher around the rim. And what have we talked about, if not that that's really useful to get around stoppers, especially if you're traditionally doing that on layups in basketball. You're now doing it moving in midair and dunking on someone. Because trampolines just make you go higher. So, excited to see him on a SlamBall court in the gunner position. And like I say, I think he's going to start. He's improved as he's gone through his professional career, but he's always been consistent over the season. Again, if we're looking at specifically that second year in Thailand, it was better at the start, it tailed off at the end, but that's okay if overall your consistency is good. We'll just need to see how he progresses in SlamBall. What is it that's causing him to get better over time? My one concern with him is that 3-point shooting, because it sort of felt like when you looked at his stats that one year they'd be good, the next year they'd be bad. He'd fluctuate between a good 3-point shooter and a not good 3-point shooter. His highlight reels show a lot of threes, so he clearly wants to be seen as a 3-point shooter. We'll see how that goes in SlamBall. He could be okay, but the fluctuation is really concerning for me. The next pick that the Gryphons had was Darion Slade. Great name, Darion. 25 from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He is been drafted as a 6 tall, 213 pound, which is weighty handler. So big bosh as a handler, like just knocking people out of the way. Why do I think he's going to be knocking people out of the way? Well, he's a former football player. The Gryphons love football players. And he's played offensive and defensive positions in football. So that's interesting. At Campbell University for the Camels, he had the third most tackles in their team's history. 221 tackles in 44 games. That includes in his last year with Campbelltown in 2021. He made 37 solo tackles and 24 assisted tackles. So he's always there to make a play defensively. I think Darion Slade is another potential fifth man off the bench for this team, depending on how defensively oriented the Gryphons want to be. Because he was the only player in the Big South with at least 60 tackles, 2 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries despite only playing in 9 games. He also had 17 pass breakups, 3 fumble recoveries and 2 forced fumbles across his 6 years at Campbell. He's a defensive disruptor as a defensive end player. If you need someone that's going to disrupt a successful handler mid-game by hitting them hard or just getting in the way of the ball, getting into their passing lanes, this is a really good guy to throw in and just throw off an opposition handler. I quite like that. He is quoted as saying, "I'm a big physical safety. I like to come downhill." So he loves contact. Great for both finishing on the offense, but also mixing it up defensively in SlamBall. And I like hearing that. The thing is, prior to going to Campbelltown, where he was advised to become a defensive end and change his position, when he was in high school, he was a quarterback. So I've got more faith in him hearing that about his distribution abilities from the handler position, because the Gryphons haven't really drafted many people who have got traditional point guard experience. So that's what I'm looking for, a traditional point guard, the basketball position that's responsible for making passes and making good plays, to be a handler. But a quarterback's a nice second, especially someone who was a quarterback and then moved to becoming a defensive player. And that when he was a defensive player, he said there were certain positions he liked more because it gave him better field view. He wanted to be able to see what was going on the entirety of the football pitch because he likes to be able to see a play develop. On top of that, he also played basketball until college. And not only did he play basketball, he was good at the high school level. He was involved in the Under Armour tours. He was in the EYBL leagues. It wasn't just like an additional string to his bow as a high school athlete. He played in Nike tournaments, in the famous North Carolina Frank Spencer Holiday Classic. See how famous it is? I can't even say it right. He scored 24 points in a finals game, 9 straight points in under 50 seconds, which reminds me of Tracy McGrady's 13 and 90? And over his 4 years at school, he became the top 3 scorer of all time for that event in North Carolina, which is a big thing. He wanted to do both sports and end up focusing on football, which is fine, especially because we'll get into it, but he had to prioritize one or the other, I would think. Screw it, I'll say why. In his freshman year at Campbellton? I don't want to say Campbellton. No, just Campbell. His freshman year at Campbell University, he tore both meniscus in his knees. He tore one, came back from it, and then tore the other immediately. If you're concerned about injuries in SlamBall, that might be one, but it seems as though he's sort of successfully come back from them now. And that was his first year at college, and his better years were at the end. So it's clearly not something that's continued to affect him in terms of in play. But he wanted to do both sports. He could have done both sports, clearly. So not only does the fact he was a quarterback give me interest in his ability to distribute the ball and run an offense, but clearly he can play basketball at a high level, and given his height, you'd assume he was also playing as point guard there. So this is someone that I really like coming off the bench as both a defensive disruptor and potentially a really good distributor of the ball. I mean, maybe even if you hadn't taken a handler in the first round, this guy could be up there as a potential starter. I think if Justin Holmes gets into injury trouble, or if you realise that he's got more potential as a gunner because of his size, you could really easily put Darion Slade on as the alternative handler, as the guy that runs the offensive show. Not only that, but he was captain for 4 years at Campbell. Leadership capabilities and abilities, that's a nice thing to see from someone that's distributing the ball. And the other thing I like is a player who improves over time, but also improves in the face of adversity. And his head coach at Campbell, former Carolina Panthers star Mike Minter, said that he thought that Darion Slade got better as the competition got better. So he plays up to his opponents. So if you're playing against some of these other teams in the SlamBall League who maybe drafted a handler in the first round, Darion Slade's going to go after them because he's got something he wants to prove. That's pretty great. I'm excited to see that. Darion Slade, someone who could be the fifth man off the bench. It depends what they want to go with him and Jordan Grant. They're both handlers, but the team does have a handler they took in the first round. I actually think based on a couple of factors, I'd rather Darion Slade come off the bench, but it could be either or. And the 8th round draft pick that the Gryphons took, this is going to be a much faster description because there's just not much on this guy. It's Ermias Casas. Again, if I've mispronounced that, apologies to Ermias Casas. He's 26 years old. He's from Denver, Colorado. He's 6'5". He's 170 pounds. He's a gunner. He's literally, this is not exaggeration, based on the numbers that are on the SlamBall League site, He is literally the lightest player in the entire league this season. My big concern for that is in the air, if he's just going to get bodied out the way by stoppers, or on the defensive end, and I'll talk to you about why in a second, why that's a concern for me on the defensive end to have a really light guy. But he's 6'5", he's very long, he's a very long guy, and he could quite easily probably dunk around people. The only thing I could find in terms of stats for his time as a basketball player was 2021 playing for the Denver All-Stars of the Evolution Basketball Association. So he was getting in 5 games for them, so small sample size, but these numbers are still quite big for 5 games. He was getting 17.6 points per game, 44% of which were from 2, 44% shooting from 2, 41% shooting from 3, 5.4 rebounds per game, and 5.2 assists per game. These are encouraging stats, weirdly, for a guy who's listed as gunner, when you could maybe have him be a really big handler. And it does present someone who can shoot threes, but there's literally not much else I can find on this guy. And the last stat from that 2021 season is 5.2 turnovers per game. So for every assist he had a turnover. Is that maybe like a big flaw? Does it matter if he's playing gunner, where his main goal is just to catch the ball and dunk it? It might do if, play breaks up and he's expected to try and reset things and he can't do it effectively. But his numbers, other than those 5.2 turnovers, are really, really good. But again, small sample size. There's just not much I can say about him with a lack of film and data. And more importantly, he's the 7th pick, the 7th round pick for these guys, on a team that's only picked one stopper, which I am going to keep coming back to for the Gryphons because I think it's the biggest thing holding them back is the one stopper. We'll talk about this in a moment. First thing though, I mentioned earlier in their coaching staff, Jelani Janice. So he played on the Rumble in 2002 when they were champions, in 2003 when he was MVP, in 2007 and 2008, and also in the recent seasons that took place in China, where he was being referred to as one of the most ferocious players in SlamBall history. He was big at the handler position. He was creative and he was able to make a lot of baskets in the recent season. And he transitioned to handler because he developed a mind for the game, because he was originally a gunner. He's a super scorer and a really accomplished player. And I think if you want one of those, a coach who's been around for like the entirety of SlamBall, so like the 14 years of league play, here and there. Jelani Janice, JJ, as I keep enjoying calling him, he probably wouldn't appreciate that, but JJ, he's probably going to be an excellent coach for this team and really instill in them how to play SlamBall effectively, especially to gunners and to Justin Holmes as an attacking handler. I think that's probably why he took Holmes 8th overall, their first round pick, because he sees someone that he can mould into his own image. His assistant coach is Rodney Bond, who played on the Bouncers in 2008. And if it's the right guy, is also Dr. No Rodney Bond in the later seasons of SlamBall played in China, because he was such an effective stopper. He got the nickname Dr. No, which just makes me think Dikembe Mutombo finger wide. I can't do it. I've not got as flexible fingers as Dikembe. But so you've got a guy who excelled offensively and a guy who was pretty good defensively as your coaching staff. That's a good sign for the Gryphons. Okay, projected starting 4, I've already said, I think Connor Hollenbeck has a real opportunity to be an all-star at the stopper position. He'll be playing pretty much all of the game, every game. Justin Holmes is a handler. He was your first round pick. You kind of assume he's going to be there. Keyshawn Jones as your 3rd round pick at a gunner position. And then I'm putting Adam Stanford in as the other starting gunner. Even though he was the 5th round pick, I just think it makes more sense for them. And I think he's going to give them a lot of scoring opportunities. 5th man. I said Jordan Grant could be the 5th man on this team. And by draft order rights, he probably should be. But I like Darion Slade as a distributor. I like Darion Slade as a defensive disruptor. I like Darion Slade as the guy who's going to be coming off the bench for the Gryphons. And I like Darion Slade, if he is, as being 5th man of the year, if that's an award they even do. Right. Gryphons, weaknesses and strengths. We start with the weaknesses because we want to end on a high with the strengths. 3 of each. What is going on at the stopper position? Connor Hollenbeck's the only stopper they've drafted. He's big, he's physical, he looks like he's going to be good at that position based on everything we've seen. But he's your only option. Their best options outside of that are Adam Stanford, who I've already said I would much rather have as a scorer. He's 6'4" and 200 pounds. He could maybe do it, but that'll put him at least 2 inches shorter than the majority of other stoppers in the league. And, it's just a disadvantage. Or Ermias Kassa, who's got a little bit extra height, but is literally the lightest player in the league. So my concerns about him offensively getting battered out the way by bigger stoppers come back defensively, where I think some gunners and even handlers are going to bully him out the way. So their options for a reserve stopper are weak and low. And so if Connor Hollenbeck gets injured, even if it's just for a game where he I don't know how accurate, hurts a finger, to the extent that he can't finish that game and needs to get strapped to the other finger for the rest of the season, you're losing that game, I would project, because I don't think they have any other options at stopper that excite me. Okay. 3-point shooting is another possible weakness. Possibly Flash Stanford, but there's no consistency. Can't talk, it's been long. Possibly Adam Stanford, but there's no consistency. Possibly Hermes Casas, but it's a small sample size. And no one else really jumped out at me from the whole team in terms of regularly shooting the 3 and making it. I say regularly shooting the 3 because we all know that Jordan Grant is going to take 8 and make 3 over the course of the season, and those are going to be key. If I get this right and he takes 8, makes 3, and one of those 3s is a game winner, I'm going to be so happy. Do it for me, Jordan Grant. 3-point shooting is a weakness for the Gryphons. There's no point guards amongst the handlers. They've taken 2 former football players and a shooting guard. That being said, bear in mind that Darion Slade is a former high school QB and probably played point guard in high school as well. So I'm more intrigued. Again, that's why I think he should be coming off the bench as a replacement handler. But there's no pure point guards amongst their handler ranks. Mostly football players. Outside of that, Flash Stanford as a distributor, despite being a gunner. The more I talk about this guy, the more I think he should also be an all-star potential guy. I might put him down on my short list. We'll talk about that closer to the season. But I really think he's a potential guy that could run it. But again, I want him to score. I want him to run and score and shoot 3s and dunk on people and use the trampolines to his advantage at his size of 6'4", 200. Definitely to put on a short list for gunner in the All-Star. Especially with 4 assists per game in his last season pro. So it was 4 assists and 10 rebounds. They don't have point guards, is what I'm saying. That being said, those were their weaknesses, and they're weak weaknesses. The main one is the stopper position, and I don't know how distribution works for them. Strengths. Connor Hollenbeck's got versatility. But the whole team's varied. The whole team has got a variety of backgrounds. So Colin Hollenbeck's versatility on the offensive end as a former wide receiver catching and making plays, but also defensively, he's got the timing down to be a good stopper. He's got the size. I really like Connor Hollenbeck. Have I made that clear enough? I love this guy. Front runner for Stopper of the Year through 2 reviews, through 2 review podcasts. But the team overall has such a varied background of sports, different stages, general athleticism, impressive wide-ranging aggressiveness. I expect them to be a tough team to deal with physically, both offensively in terms of what they're going to throw at you at the basket, and defensively in terms of people like Darion Slade messing up plays, in terms of all the former football guys on this team being unafraid to mix it up and really put pressure on players. And a lot of transition offense going hard to the hoop. Holmes, Hollenbeck, Jones, 3 wide receivers taken in your first 3 rounds. It's a lot of guys jumping straight at the hoop to put it in. That's, again, not including people like Stanford, who are going to be excited to use some aggression. Darion Slade, who is a little firecracker off the bench, is going to go straight at the hoop as well. That's 5 guys I've mentioned in a 4-player sport that's probably just going to punish you inside, unless Hollenbeck's staying back defensively. And finally, they have a lot of defensive potential at handler. Again, there's that might offset the lack of strength at stopper, or the lack of depth at stopper. They have the strength in Hollenbeck, but Darion Slade is going to hit people. Justin Holmes is going to hit people. Your starting and your reserve handler are going to mix it up defensively and really get involved at stopping the offense from making plays and making moves. I just think that's going to be really difficult for offensive sides to match up against. So I think overall I'm a lot higher on the Gryphons than I am low. I think I've got more strengths than weaknesses. It's 3 of each. That's kind of the balance we do. 3 and 3. But the weakness is a big weakness is that stopper issue. That's the biggest one for me is depth at the stopper position, being able to give Connor Hollenbeck some rest game to game. Big concerns about that. But overall, very high on the Gryphons. Really excited to see what they come up with. And very excited for their SlamBall season to begin in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, I said this was going to be shorter. This is the longest podcast we've done on Bounce Off thus far. Apologies, I had so much I wanted to say about Hollenbeck, about Slade, about Stanford. There's 3 guys, there's multiple guys on this team that I'm excited about. I'm excited about the Gryphons. Bring on the SlamBall season, 21st of July. ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Plus. Hopefully we'll see some of it over here in the UK. But I've been Sam Roberts. You can find me on social media at Quantum Roberts. You can find Bounce Off on YouTube, on Apple, on Google, on Amazon, on Spotify, wherever you like podcasts. And this is our first one of the week, previewing the Gryphons on a Monday. On Wednesday, we're going to have a preview of the Lava. And on Friday, we're going to have a preview of the Mob. Get excited, folks. That is 1 week of Bounce Off down. We've got so much more to come, including a surprise for you this Sunday. But we'll see when that happens, when that comes. See you later, guys. Thank you for listening, for subscribing, for watching. Tell your friends about SlamBall. Let's get excited. New season coming soon. That was way more energy than I had the rest of the video.